Hello, Mark. I think we might be up to episode 50 whatever.
Yeah, 50
in our
whatever.
podcast, yes.
We are. We're tracking along nicely. The year's gone, and we're getting some great listeners on our little podcast we've done.
Yeah, the feedback's been fantastic. In fact, today we've just come off the long weekend of the King's birthday. I nearly said Queen's birthday. But the thing that struck me over this weekend was the big freeze at the MCG.
Which was an amazing televised event, let alone being present at the ground.
Well, but more so from my point of view, I'm interested in the fact that, it's about a cause of MND, of course, which prompts me to remind everybody listening to this is to do your health checks on a regular basis, because you never know when something might creep up on you health-wise.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's a bit like servicing your car. My favourite expression is, you would not go and drive your car for 10 years without having a checkup. So please apply that to your body and your mind.
So, Bill, today's guest, tell us.
Well, I've got pages and pages of notes about our guest today. But today I want to introduce Christine Smith. Christine has an amazing history, and she was originally a 20-year veteran of the police force where she specialised in child abuse. And I can only imagine the experience in that area of the police force. But since leaving the police force, Christine has actually gone into business. And this business that she started was in one way prompted by the fact that unfortunately she had a brain tumour and had a brain operation. And out of that she had partial paralysis and probably lived the life of those who were recovering. And through her own, what I call grit, determination and courage, has survived all that and now has a very successful award-winning business.
And Chris is sort of seen as the guru in dealing with disability accommodation. But without any words further, welcome, Christine.
Oh, hi, Mark and Bill. Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate also the opportunity to speak with you both today.
Fantastic. So, Chris, what do you prefer? Do you prefer Chris or Christine?
Oh, I prefer Chris, actually.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
No, my youngest son is called Jacob, and I call him Jake, and I'm continually reminded his name is Jacob. So I always like to ask and make sure.
Yeah, Christine to me sounds a little bit too severe sometimes, but Chris or Chrissy is my preferred.
Your preferred.
Well, we'll have to remember that, Mark, because another issue which we might advise our listeners is that the three of us sit on as judges as Geelong Business Excellence Awards.
We do too.
Yes,
that's right, and I'm so humbled and honoured to be part of that team. It's just such a dynamic and awesome team. I've learnt so much about business, mentoring, and how important that is, but also how amazing our region is just in terms of the creativity and innovation that comes through those awards. I've just learnt so much, and I'm just so grateful to be part of that.
And our little podcast, we've been discovering fascinating people, and that's why you're here, Chris. So let's start. Where did you go to school? Where was primary school? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I was born in Colac. I have two brothers, both older than me. I was raised in Barwon Downs, which is probably more popular now than it was back in the 70s when I was born. It's a beautiful township just on the edge of the Otways in the Western Districts. I was raised by two extremely hardworking parents, a farmer and a nurse. And my two brothers and I guess, gained our very strict and ongoing work ethic through our childhood days when we were working on the farm, picking peas, picking up potatoes, and getting paid for our work. And that's been embedded in all three of us into our adult lives. But interestingly, we all left school at the age of 16, and we've all been employed from the day we left school to today. It's really was the right option for all three of us kids.
So coming back to that then, what was your first job then once you left the farm?
So I left school at 16, Colac High School. Uh, Interestingly, when I was about 7 years of age, my parents took me to see some family friends, and one of them was a policeman, and he put me in the police car and took me for a drive, and probably my brothers as well. And that was a pivotal moment for me at the age of 7. I decided from that moment on I was going to be joining the police force.
Oh, wow.
So when I was about 15, I think, I actually took it upon myself to give the police academy a phone call and ask them, should I do year 12 or should I go out and get a job? Because I'm going to be joining the police force and I want to know what you think. So very different to today, but back then they actually told me I needed to go find myself a job. So I finished year 11 and then my mother drove me to the Birregurra train station, plonked me on the train, and off I went to Melbourne and found myself a job and never looked back. And I joined the police force at 19.
Well, what was the job you did for a few years?
Well, another quite lovely thing about our past and growing up back then was that we were able to just simply ring and write a couple of letters and get a job just like that. And what I did was I wrote to 10 banks in Melbourne and 10 solicitors in Geelong,
Yep.
Posted those off, letting them know who I was and how keen I was to get a job. And I received a letter from the Commonwealth Bank saying, you've got a job. And then so I went off and worked in Melbourne for a couple of weeks. And then I got a job at Whiten and McDonald. They were called Whiten and McDonald solicitors back then. And I was offered a job there. And so I quit the bank after 2 weeks, and made my way back down to Geelong, because a job in law was much more preferable to me, as an intro to the police force. So
well, that's a bit of Chris, that's a bit of a familiar story, because if you go back over our past 50-odd podcasts, you'll find when we ask that question and that early career path, the bank comes up quite a few times.
Does it? Yeah, right.
So I think parents thought I think parents thought it was a secure pathway in those days. Yeah.
Well, and also when back then, I mean, I'm 51 now. Back then, you could either go to uni, or you could become a secretary, or in the bank. The banks were obviously a good option, but there was nothing really taught. Well, I can't remember ever being taught anything at school about owning your own business, small business, medium business, being an entrepreneur, and what that means, or even being given some confidence in the fact that you can actually succeed in life without a degree.
Yep.
And that there are many more options available to you. And that was sort of an underlying simmering kind of thought process in my mind, even as I went through my 20 years in the police force. I knew there was something out there that was more than just the police force, not just the police force, but that there was something else out there for me.
Well, 20 years is a long stint for anyone. Oh, it is these days, isn't it? In one occupation. So
it is, yeah.
Well, so what do you think the biggest thing you got out of being a member of the Victorian Police?
Well, cliche as it sounds, helping people. Obviously, the role that I'm in now in my business is also that, but I just have so many fond memories of being in the police force. I was able to create change. I was able to help people in the sexual offence and child abuse unit for 15 years. I was able to literally see kids walk in with the world of weight on their shoulders, and after being able to talk about their experiences and have somebody believe them and listen to them and do something for them, and seeing them walk out at the end of that whole process a different person, was where it was at for me. A lot of people will comment on not being able to work in such an industry, but if you look at it at the end, when you're seeing the people feeling believed, valued, respected, and you can see why people like myself stayed in that part of the job for so long.
And Chris, that is See, that is a side of policing that the public don't hear of. We hear so much on the negative side, particularly when it comes to youth. So that is really great to hear that sort of story. But okay, so what prompted you to pull the plug, and where did you go next?
I pulled the plug.
That's a new expression for us.
Yeah, I pulled the plug because there was one particular night I went to a job, and at this point in my career, I had 4 kids under 9.
Wow.
I went to a job where it was called up as a domestic, but I arrived there and I could see a gentleman pulling a woman out of the window by her hair.
Oh, wow.
My partner and I went into this very, very small unit and were confronted by 3 hysterical women and another man with a knife barricaded into the back room. And at that point, I sort of just thought, oh, that's it. That's the tipping point for me. I've got 4 kids at home, and I need to find another avenue that's a bit safer for me. I need to come home to my kids. So we completed the job successfully. Got a good outcome there. I went back to the watch house at 10 o'clock for the end of my shift. Rang up my boss and resigned.
It's interesting, Chris. Bill and I often talk about tipping points or sliding door moments where something happens and it makes you change or rethink what you're doing. And that was definitely yours, wasn't it? When you went into something as confronting as that, thinking of your kids. I understand that.
Yeah, it was. There was a funny thing too that also happened that sort of made me think that I might have had a few too many things on my plate. At the time, during the time I was in the police force, I was also managing my own business at that point with holiday accommodation.
Yep.
And one of the homes, this is a funny story, one of the homes was called King Tide Townhouse, and I was sort of managing that. And it was a very, very, very micro business, very small business. I'd finished in the sexual offences squad, finished at 2 o'clock or whatever, came home and the phone rang, and I was so tired and exhausted with my 4 kids and everything else. The phone rang and I answered it and I said, "Hello, sexual King Tide Townhouse." And the guy on the other end of the phone said, "Oh, this could be a good holiday for me." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I couldn't even, the moment had passed for me to even explain to him why I'd said that. And at that moment I thought, I can't do all of these things. I've got to reduce my workload somewhere along the line. So that was another tipping point.
All right. So, okay. So after that, what were the next steps?
Well, I was very unwell at that point when I quit the police force, and I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. And during that period of time in the holiday accommodation business, we recognised a desperate need for wheelchair accessible accommodation, and that tourism in general was overlooking people with a disability and in a wheelchair, but also with limited mobility or invisible disabilities. So we set about levelling a double block in order to build a respite centre for use for holidays with people with disabilities. So we flattened the block, and then I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. So our development sort of went from 1 year to 5.5 years in duration. But I guess that was another pivotal moment and time in my life where there were a lot of changes, a lot of stress. And obviously the brain tumour operation didn't go as planned, so I was in there for a lot longer than first thought, because they'd cut some nerves and things in my face. So there was a whole lot of time-sensitive operations had to occur. So in the end, we finally built our respite centre, which completed in around 2017. And then we've moved gradually into more away from tourism into a healthcare setting.
So, Chris, just going back to your health, what tipped you off you had something wrong? Were you aware, or was it what?
Yeah, I was aware. I was very aware. I was very aware something was wrong. Used to get a lot of headaches, but I looked like I was drunk most of the time. I remember out at 13th Beach Golf, I was playing a lot of golf back then, and every time I'd try and clamber out of the bunkers, I'd fall over, and I was the joke of the day every day. But the reason actually behind that was because I had a brain tumor growing it's ironically the size of a golf ball.
Wow.
In my left ear and brain cavity.
Yep.
So it was causing me to fall over to the left a lot, and without any reason. Plus lots of headaches. So it took 2 years to be diagnosed, but in the end, I was diagnosed, which I was happy about, because I was sort of thought I was going a bit stupid.
And here you are, alive and a very dynamic person within the industry. So,
thank you.
Why the transition to more of a health than a tourism? What's driven that sort of move?
Well, I guess COVID drove that. It pushed me. COVID pushed me into that space, and out of COVID, I guess, having a diverse range of businesses, or having diversity within one business, is crucial.
Yep.
So for me, I was actually running or managing two separate businesses at that time when COVID turned up, and of course COVID killed off tourism first, and
yep.
I just pretty much closed down my tourism business at that point in March of 2020, and concentrated all my efforts into the healthcare business, and it's thriving today, and I have over 40 employees now, and I've gone from 1 or 2 employees back in COVID time. So I made the right decision, but my heart still goes out to all of those tourism businesses that suffered greatly during that time.
Chris, while all this is going on, of course, and prior to it, you won 3 Business of the Year, or not Business of the Year, but you've been finalists and won categories 3 years in a row, I think, in the Geelong Business Excellence Awards. You've become close to or did you win the Disability Leader of the Year award, or you're a finalist? I read something about that.
I was a finalist, I was a finalist, which was amazing. That was a national award, and I was just so humbled by that, to think that to be recognised on that level, to be out there championing the voice of all those giants before me that had no voice. I think one of the most amazing things about those awards is that it gave me the opportunity to stand up and get that message out there that disability is not invisible in our community. It's real. Our built environment is very, very hard for people with physical disabilities, and we all need to do better.
That's right. Now, while all this is going on, you're raising 4 kids. How did you manage all that? What's going on at home while all this drama's going on outside?
Yeah. Well, my children, they're now aged between 16 and 20. They, one of the good things out of my brain tumour was that they became very resilient, very close. We're very, very close to each other, and they became very patient. So, and they carry those skill sets with them now. I've got 3 of them that work within my business, and they love the idea of choice in terms of whether you're academic or not academic, and that they can see that there are choices out there for them outside of the curriculum that's handed to them at school. So they're good humans, and I'm extremely proud of all of them, and they all still live with me, and I'm trying to keep them with me for as long as possible.
So, Chris, tell us about the health business. What do you do? What's involved? Tell us about it.
It's I would describe it as managing mini hospitals all over region. We have carers come in and we look after people with a range of disabilities that are either transitioning from hospital or in a degenerative type disability situation where we can look after them with their ongoing needs while their own home is being fitted out, which we also do. That's another arm of the business. We look after people with very high complex needs because the respite homes that we have ceiling hoists, hospital beds, trained staff, nurses. And so really we're a very essential arm to the healthcare system whereby people don't need to necessarily be in aged care homes or hospitals. They can come to us and we'll look after them.
So have you got homes set up across the Barwon Southeast, or where's? Yep.
So mainly Geelong and the Bellarine at the moment, and we are extending through Melbourne. We have a builder working with us full time who is wonderful and an expert in accessible housing. And interestingly, actually, the federal government has put forward some policy to have building regulations changed to be universal in design, so that all future houses can be accessible to people in wheelchairs. And there's 2 states holding out on that. But if they finally agree, then for me and for all other wheelchair users, it'd be a lot easier to find a wheelchair accessible home. But at the moment, we're just doing a lot of mods, a lot of renos with our building team to create homes that are suited for everyone.
So do you own all the homes that you're building and fit the match?
Yeah, no, there's a selection, and I do work with like-minded home owners who understand and adopt our values, so that they know what we're about, they know what we need, and they know that if we come to them with an ask or a modification request, that they know why and they're agreeable to that. So it is a bit of both. Luckily for me, I've got a really good team of homeowners that I work with.
That's fantastic, Chris, because that, again, Bill and I are often amazed at some of the secrets that we've discovered around Geelong, and your business is definitely one of them.
Yes.
I knew you were in that space, but I didn't know what you did. And so you've given the tourism totally away. You're just focusing now purely on the health side of things.
Yeah, yes, I do. Part of the health side of things is it's a very holistic approach that we have with our clientele. So I'm really servicing the tourism industry in terms of utilising the services that they have for my clients. So I might not be in the space just in terms of renting my homes out to people in there, but I'll certainly be going to the likes of Seal Dolphin Swims and a lot of the wineries and a lot of the other accessible businesses we have in the region, so we can get our clients out and about.
Chris, we mentioned before about being a judge on the Business Awards and that you won it three different years. Are there any, I guess, what's your observation about business owners in general? What do you think makes them successful?
I think a passion for what they're doing. There needs to be fun in what you're doing, and value, and to see the value and to see that you're making a change, an actual change. People that are nimble, and especially out of COVID, people that are nimble and have a diverse range of services or products within their business is very important as well. But I think the passion, people, I mean, to work, to build up a business and to have a successful ongoing business requires a lot of work, and I'm not telling you to anything you don't know, but it's something that you can't do part-time. You really need to have your heart and soul into it.
You've got to love what you do, haven't you?
I read a book of quite a while ago, and I forget the gentleman's name. It was called "Passionate People Produce Passionate Results."
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I've never forgotten that. Yeah.
So, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yep.
So, how do people get in touch with you? How do people use your services? What's the link?
Our website is destinationaccessible.com.au. You guys might know me as Great Ocean Stays, and I'm transitioning into Destination Accessible now, because it's a better name for what I do now out of the tourism and COVID time. So yeah, so destinationaccessible.com.au, and happy to receive any feedback or requests for service.
Fantastic. And in crystal ball, Chris, 5 years' time, where do you see yourself?
Well, I did say to one of my a consultant who's coming in helping me with my business a couple of weeks ago, she asked me the same question. I said, smelling the tulips in Amsterdam, and she laughed at me. She said, "You are never going to be smelling tulips in Amsterdam. You are always going to be doing something." For me, in 5 years, I see myself looking at the world in a more accessible way, that we have created a more inclusive built environment for people with disability, and that my small contribution assisted in that. In 5 years' time, I think my business will be still providing for people with disability, whether I'm at the helm or whether it's somebody else at the helm.
Well, what I see in 5 years' time, you're not actually working in it like you are now, and that it is running and it's been run with professionals, and you're out there, I guess, strategy and educating the community. I think that might be where you end up.
Yeah, right. Well, I have a lot of people have a lot of things going around in their head, and it's a big mushy mess of ideas. That's me. To speak those ideas is a whole other challenge for me. But I'm very much an introvert with lots of ideas in my head, and if I can get them down and get them out in a succinct kind of way, then I'm with you, Bill.
Good. Okay.
So, Chris, thank you. You who would have thought that somebody wandering around a farm down at in the Barwon picking potatoes would be running a disability accommodation service? Unbelievable story, Chris. Absolutely fantastic.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your support, actually, and it's us little people out there who can inspire the kids and my kids and other kids and young people that they can do anything, regardless of results at school, as long as there's passion.
That's very true. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.